We are live. We're live. For those of you who are probably wondering what all of this hustle bustle behind me, I am at the airport right now. I have to go and see one of my best friends off in. He's getting married. And I have to go back to Wisconsin this weekend. So I'm really not looking forward to it because I've gotten spoiled in the deep south. It's going to be like 60, and it's like 90 right now. So needless to say, I've got like winter clothes. I've got a lot of. I'm anticipating snow. So it's really kind of the big thing with that. So for those of you that are on, stop in and say hello. But today we're going to be talking about something near and dear to Rob's heart because he's an attorney and attorneys love this stuff. But the question that we get asked all the time, and the big thing is, do you need an LLC to get started? And Rob, what is the short answer to that question?
No, never. You don't need it to get started. You get it by choice. And what I would strongly suggest is don't do one until you've done a deal. Fund your LLC with the proceeds of your first deal.
Mm-hmm. Here's the big thing with this, guys, is so when people start talking about LLCs, it's a limited liability corporation, and the big thing with that is they talk about separating the assets, protecting your assets from being sued. So typically this really matters in a civil suit. So when you get going and you start conducting business, until you have generated a profit, you really haven't done anything to be under the radar of any sort of entity that may or may not sue you or your assets. And so that's why we say it's totally fine to conduct business without an LLC before you start generating a profit. As soon as you generate a profit, then establish your LLC. You can backdate those purchases. You can, and put all of that underneath the umbrella, but don't let it prohibit you from getting started. Because we see a lot of people that are like, oh, well, I don't want to take action until I get my LLC. That's another one of those paralysis by over-analysis things that stops you from getting in the game, is that you think you need to have everything perfect, and you don't. I can tell you guys one of the major pitfalls, and especially depending on the state that you're in, if you get an LLC and you never conduct any business and you let it go unchecked, you're actually going to get hit with penalties for not filing tax returns. And yes, believe it or not, even if you do not do business, you have to let the Secretary of State know, hey, I didn't do business. I can tell you, this is from personal experience. So just to show you guys, Rob and I aren't perfect. I mean, Rob probably remembers getting the phone call from me when I was like, dude, my bank account just got levied.
Yeah.
And he was like, what? Wait, is everything okay? I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It wasn't all the money I had to my name, but that what had happened is an LLC from a couple years prior that I didn't do anything. I was like most of you, and I'm like, well, I need to have an LLC to do business. And so I got an LLC, and it just sat. I didn't do anything with it. And then come to find out that the Secretary of State was sending letters to an old address. So I never got anything, had no idea. And then I went into my checking account one day, and a couple $100 was missing. And I'm like, what is going on here? And I looked at it, there's penalties and stuff. And when I called the Department of Revenue, they said, well, you have never filed a tax return. They charged me for estimated taxes. Mm-hmm. They estimated that, how much money. I'm like, I was not doing any business whatsoever. I'm like, you can look at I go, this business doesn't even have an EIN. I never even got a federal EIN number. It's like I had no federal tax ID. I had a state tax ID. So, that's a big thing, guys, is, there are pitfalls, to getting an LLC that if you're not doing any money, if you're not generating any revenue, it's a waste of time. You aren't protecting any assets. The thing that, and honestly, and this blows my mind, but an LLC does not protect you in fraud. If you can't be sued civilly, the only thing that you're going to get sued for is for committing fraud. And I can tell you that there's no LLC or any level of corporation that's going to prevent that from happening.
So no, Kyle's right. As far as that goes, one of the things we would say is like a lot of people out there think, hey, you gotta get an LLC to get started. You don't. You get an LLC for asset protection, and so the first thing to do is get some assets. And so that's why I say do your first deal, get some money, then you have some tech. If you want to create one before you get started, that's perfectly fine. It's just not a requirement. And the other part, like Kyle said, is that if you've got an LLC, there's reporting requirements every year with it. You have to report state taxes. You have to report state franchise taxes. And so you want to make sure that those things get reported, because if you do not send in your report, they will put out either an estimated amount that you should have paid, or there'll be a fine for not filing. So that stuff happens. It's not fun, especially on a business that never got off the ground, that you have to come back a year later and try and pay money for it. That's not.
And let me tell you, like, if you tell them, you're like, yeah, we didn't do any business whatsoever, like they start off with not believing you. I mean, to the length at which I had to go to prove that I didn't do any business. I'm like, why am I being questioned right now? I didn't do any business. And she's like, are you sure? Is there any remote possibility that, you did this? And I'm like, yeah, I'm positive that I didn't do anything. It's crazy. But then, also depending on what state you are, like I'm fortunate, what my situation happened in Wisconsin. I live in Texas now. The big thing is that in Texas, and Rob can attest to this, you have to pay a fee to dissolve your LLC. Yep. So, if you're one of these people that, you feel the need, and I can tell you guys, in this industry, there's a lot of people out there that wholesale that feel the need to start by getting their LLC, which is all fun and well. Again, it's overkill. You don't need to until you get your first deal. A lot of people fail out. A lot of people don't take action. A lot of people never get that first deal. And so they've spent all of this time, getting this LLC, and now they're going to, and then they forget about it. So then they incur penalties for not filing taxes. And then when they finally get to the point of dissolving, because a lot of times you can get those fees pushed away. Like I ended up getting my money back. But the big thing is that you still have to pay like a dissolution fee, depending on what state you're in. That could be, $50, $100. But again, if you make zero in the business, you're losing money. The next big thing that I want to talk about too is that if and when you do get to the point of filing your LLC, guys, going to something like LegalZoom is all fun and well. They try to make it sound super easy. I can tell you that setting up a limited liability corporation is as simple as going on your Secretary of State's website, going on the IRS's website and getting your federal EIN number. Guys, they walk you through everything. When you get to the point where you want to change from an LLC to an S corp, become incorporated and do that, then you're going to have an accountant. You're going to have cash flow. It's when money starts coming in that you're going to go to the necessary entities and have them walk you through the tax advantages of each one. But guys, save your $400, save your $200. It's establishing a business and the crazy voodoo that goes with it. It's super easy. I've done it a handful of times personally, just going to the website. Rob's probably done it like 15 times in the last year. It seems like.
Yeah.
We've got our shell companies have shell companies.
Exactly.
That's the big thing. Rob, do you what else do you want to add when it comes to this stuff? Because I know you and I talk about it a lot, and there's just a lot of wasted time, money, and effort in this stuff.
No, I think the big thing is that when it comes to creating an LLC, that Kyle's absolutely right. Go on the website, go on the Secretary of State website, go through the IRS website, follow the instructions. It might cost you an hour of your time, maybe an hour and a half. If you have questions or concerns, reach out in the group. Hey,
I do.
you can get a hold of me pretty easy. I could probably explain to you what they're asking. But the truth is that a lot of their instructions that they give, because I know in Texas, the Secretary of State, they give a form for the instructions on what everything means. Just read through it and fill it out. LegalZoom is fine. If you have more money than you do time, be my guest. If you got more time than money, then absolutely do it yourself. It's not that hard. But more than anything, this is not a day one, item to do. This is a what to do after I close my first deal.
Yeah. Two things you don't need prior to getting your first deal is an LLC and a buyer's list.
Right.
Like, let's just get that out there. And for the record, the only reason why Rob works with me is I'm a specialist at eviction and moving stuff out of houses. You just, hey, dude, you go knock on that door. They'll leave. Okay.
Really?
But no, guys, like that's a huge thing. Is that two things you don't need when it comes to that is, you don't need an LLC to start. You do need one if this is going to become a business. Let's not get those twisted. The thing is you don't need one before you get money first. Have a business. How often, Rob, do we have the conversation with people who are like, man, you want to do all of this stuff? Like, are you cash flowing like 7 figures a month?
Right. Like,
well, no, I haven't made any money yet.
Resource allocation. Be honest with yourself. If you've got a bunch of stuff going on and you have a bunch of resources all of a sudden, great. If you are just starting off, it's the whole walk before you run. In this case, it's walk before you jump into a car and start driving. Learn the very, very basics first. The LLC is something that will come. There's a time when it's absolutely relevant and absolutely needed. It is not day one, item one. It is, get your first deal closed, figure it out, and then go from there. There's so many other things that are much more vital and important to you that you should go ahead and get done first.
Yeah, because you can still write the same expenses off and everything like that, that led into getting that first deal and the establishment of the LLC. Like, when did you start incurring costs for the LLC? Like, guys, the federal government gets it. Like, they understand that, hey, you might start working on your business prior to getting the LLC. Like, you can backdate that stuff, and any good accountant will tell you the same thing. So, don't go out there, waste the time, waste the effort. That's exactly.
Wow. Why you spend $1,300? That's a lot of money.
That's what I want to know. That's exactly what I want. What did they spend $1,300 on? Like,
no, that happens. I mean, that's like going out and starting a business and then buying a real nice desk before you have an office.
Hey, Jonathan, though, I'm telling you what, man. Let's go into business together. I'll cut you in on it. Anybody that wants to pay $1,300 to set up an LLC, you bring them my way. I will do all of the paperwork. I'll even give you 50%. So we'll split that $650, and I will take the 15 minutes it takes to set up an LLC, and I'll set that up. We'll split that. You and me, buddy. Oh my God.
February.
Good Lord. Like,
Jesus.
that's the thing. See, but guys, think about that. Like let's look at a situation like that. For all of you guys that are out there, think about what you could have done with think about what $1,300 would have done for your business. Think about that. That's bandit signs. That's ringless voicemail. That's skip tracing a list. That's buying a list if you feel one. For $1,300, I mean, shoot, $1,300, Rob, covers what? Like a quarter of our monthly campaign? Like a third?
Yeah.
I mean, we spend probably I don't know, $5,000-$6,000 on that stuff. And so yeah, $1,300, that goes a long way for something that you don't need right away. The cheapest way to get an LLC, this is a really good question. Go to the Secretary of State website and just walk it through. And honestly, if you have a question when you get to the Secretary of State's website, is, you go, EINs aren't free either. EINs aren't, you have to pay a filing fee. There's a registration fee for all of these. And when you go to the Secretary of State's website, when you go to the IRS website, like you pay, it's a small amount. It's like $100 or something like that. 100, like total, it ends up being like $154, I think. Does that sound about right?
Let's see.
It's over $100. I know that it's over $100. All things considered. But do you need an LLC? I would have one. I mean, as you start wholesaling more and more houses, I would definitely recommend having some of them. Here's the an EIN number, a federal EIN number, has nothing to do with Florida.
Right.
That is a federal government thing. That is in all 50 states.
The federal EIN number is for your IRS taxes, for your federal taxes. And it's usually for banks to go ahead and open up accounts. All right.
What state do you recommend filing your whatever state you reside in?
That's usually the easiest. The easiest thing is you do it in the state you reside in, or a lot of people are familiar with filing in Delaware or in Nevada or wherever. Unless your state is really anti-business, and some states are. I would just file in the state that I reside in. All my businesses are filed in Texas. But if I was going to file in another state, you just do Delaware.
Mm-hmm. Because I mean, the thing is you have to be able to prove residence in that state, or have someone that has residence in that state. I don't know how you get around. I mean, you can get around it. You need a PO box, right?
The trick with, the trick with, if you file in a state that you don't live in, is that any LLC needs to have a registered agent. So a registered agent, we talked about this a little bit today, Kyle and I did. Registered agent is somebody that takes service of process. Service of process is if you're getting sued by anybody, whether it's a federal government, state government, county government, local government, neighbor, whatever. Somebody has to be there to accept service. They have to be a resident of the state. And so if you're going to be getting like a Delaware LLC, you have to have a registered agent in the state of Delaware. That's all. So that's why I typically say just file it in the state that you're in, because you're your own registered agent. That way you cut the middleman out. If you're getting sued, you kind of want to know immediately. Time is of the essence. Waiting a week or two before somebody figures out it's a good idea to pass it on to you, that's probably not great. Mm-hmm. So, that's how that goes.
Perfect. I mean, as far as like setting that stuff up, we're not going to do it for you, but just reach out. Like, we'll walk you through it. Honestly, it's so easy. It's just you go to your state secretary, you go to your Secretary of State website, you go into irs.gov, and the paperwork is very self-explanatory. Honestly, there's no voodoo for it. Like, these conglomerations would have you believe that it's a lot more involved than what it is. Trust me, it's not that bad. It's truly not that bad. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But the big thing is that if you're paying anybody that charges you $1,000 to set up an LLC that is ludicrous.
I mean, I charge like $100. It's nothing.
We charge less to vet hard money deals.
Yeah.
Like to process,
because really all I'm going to do is read through the instructions and follow them. I mean, it's like building like a small bookcase.
So the benefit here, the benefit of having an LLC is really, it is the protection of assets. So what that does is say that there's a civil matter that takes place that prevents you from, say, losing your car, losing your home, things that aren't owned by the business. So it basically, if someone were to sue you, it stops right there. So limited liability corporation. And what that means is that the liability is limited to only the assets that are owned by the business. So if you're one of those people that's like, well, I'm going to put my house in my LLC, watch out. Honestly, like when people are like, oh yeah, you've got to put this in, it's scare tactics. Well, building business credit too. Yes, business credit is a thing. It takes years to establish.
Yeah.
It takes consistent income. So, I mean, that's one thing. You don't, just because you start an LLC doesn't mean you can get business credit.
No, it's not automatic.
So, but no, I mean, and there are tax benefits to having an LLC. I mean, shoot. Last year, I didn't make any money at all in the eyes of the federal government, and that was just in the taxes and deductions that I follow. And no, I wasn't doing anything not by the book. I'm completely good as far as the government is concerned with that stuff. But that's a benefit too. Is there are tax advantages to doing that. You can write off expenses. You can mileage and certain other foods and travel. Brittany, for those of you, hey, this is a great example, guys. For those of you who have an LLC and sign up for coaching with Rob and I, or buy our courses, that is a tax deductible expense. Continuing education in these things is a tax deductible expense. So like when you're paying for these services, it's a write-off.
Your biggest LLC benefit is that you have a separate entity. So what it does more than anything else is that it gives you a level of protection between your personal assets and the business assets. And so what that means more than anything else is, like, say something goes horribly, horribly wrong, you are not losing your personal assets. It is just what you have in the business. So we don't even want to think about that happening, but it's basically it's a level and layer of protection between you and your personal wealth and assets and your family's wealth and assets and what's going on in your business.
Mm-hmm. So it's just
that's why once you've done a deal, it's a good idea to have it.
Yeah, because you've generated money. Now you have something for someone to come after.
Yeah.
That then you get sued and they're like, well, I know you made $10,000.
Right.
I can take that.
That's right.
But they can't come after everything else. So that's the benefit of it. And also, like, if you've got a partnership and things like that, it's good to have an LLC because it's the division of assets. It sets up a check and a balance. There's a lot of good to it as well, because then too, if you pass away, it goes deeper into those things of who then takes your controlling interest of the business, who takes out, like, if you don't have an LLC set up and you have a partnership but it's more of a handshake agreement and they die, their family is not entitled to anything. They legally can't touch a thing. So there's a lot to it when we get that. But to kind of recap quick, guys, you don't need an LLC to start, and you don't need LegalZoom.
Right.
Remember, two things you don't need before your first deal: a buyer's list and an LLC. That is what I will leave you with today.
Do not miss your flight. That would be horrible.
Nope, we are about to board right now. So my friends Our commitment to you is that we come to you live every day, no matter where we are in the world. And so with that, I bid you guys adieu. I will see you tomorrow from Wisconsin. And remember, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.